Hi, this is Matt and Greg with Makellos Classics, and today we are going over another project highlight. This is a 1977 911s. The customer brought the car in. It was actually his neighbor's car for, I think the neighbor is the original owner, but he saw it sitting in the garage for about 20 years, actually since he was a kid, and finally convinced his neighbor to sell it to him. But it had just been sitting there, so I think it had been sitting for about 20 years or something there. He said he never saw it move. So it's supposedly a 50,000 mile car, which it looks like it could be. It's I don't know what the color is.
It's a light yellow from
light yellow.
the 70s. I forgot if they call it canary.
Still needs to be detailed, so maybe we'll see a little better once that happens. But yeah, so he brought it to us to kind of get the car running. Hadn't been running in about 20 years. So we went through, fuel lines, oil lines, ignition.
The common no-start issues. And, this one, much like that 912 that we talked about earlier, this car checks all those boxes for common issues, plus a few more. All 4 brake calipers were just seized. And on these, they're all M calipers, so they're easier and cheaper to buy new than to rebuild, which is wild. When you start looking at the brake systems, you're in for a master cylinder. Since it's a 77, you've got that brake booster, which is hard to come by, hard to
first
rebuild.
Year of the brake booster, right?
Yep.
And that was fun because but the customer wanted to get the thing running, and basically I think just it was more of a sentimental value since he's always been kind of eyeing it.
He's been staring at it forever, yeah.
So yeah.
And different from the 912. 912 obviously is carbureted, so you've got carbs to rebuild, and on this it's a CIS system, so
makes it a little easier.
A little easier and harder because when your fuel system is gummed up, you have to look at injectors, fuel distributor, your warm-up regulator. Generally, all of those need to be rebuilt because they're just completely slammed and coated in old gas. But this basically turned to a mini restoration. I mean, it was a fairly big bill, and going through with new shocks, new bushings, redoing the distributor, overhauling that, making it replacing mechanical points with electronic. All the hot air ducting. I mean, that always gets torn up and cracked, so you replace all those. Engine service, I mean, that's, you get about 20 hours into that just for valve adjustments. And
this one had all the wiring issues with the rats, so it was sitting in a garage with a bunch of rats, and we actually pulled the rats out of the front air.
I think we got about 5 dead rats out of this one.
They're like petrified. It was kind of crazy. So we ended up, pulling the engine down, basically taking everything off, getting everything kind of cleaned out.
There's dog food over near all the spark plugs.
Yep. And so just kind of went through all that stuff and brought it back to health. And it also had the original 5-blade fan, which is kind of cool to see on, you don't really see those because it was not a good idea at the time, but those years came with them.
That's how they passed emissions, right? They wanted to keep the heat in with thermal reactors, which also are paying for smog, right? Those 5-blade fans to reduce cooling. And these things generally run like 210 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
Which you normally want to be sitting at, right, 180, 185?
Yeah, and it still has the original thermal reactors, which most of these 77, 76 cars, you don't see those on anymore because people rip them off because you're talking about a magnesium case with a bunch of heat right underneath it, and it just caused a lot of studs to pull and all that.
A lot of premature engine failures, absolutely.
So this one still has them on it, and actually we got it through smog with those thermal reactors on, and honestly we're trying to convince the customer to change out for some different heat exchangers, but he has to make sure he's passing smog each year.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, so after a 3 or 4 month project, the car's ready to go back to the customer, and
he gets to drive it for the first time, which will be exciting for him. But if any of you guys have any stories like this or any cars that need to be brought back to life from sitting for years, please give us a call. Click the link below. Drop us a line.